Are you a rationalist? I know that you have some knowledge or a lot of knowledge from experience, right? You've ridden a skateboard or you've attended a concert or you've played tennis. And all of those experiences would have given you all kinds of knowledge about our world, about reality. Think about what you learn about how things move through space by riding a skateboard. Or think about all that you learn about physics from playing tennis or basketball or something along those lines. Think about all that you learn about what's beautiful by going to a concert. So clearly there's experiences you've had that have given you knowledge. But the question that you have to ask yourself is this: do you believe that there are very important fundamental truths about the nature of reality that you can attain knowledge of simply by thinking, simply by using your reasoning processes? Can you draw conclusions about reality, what exists and how it exists through sheer reason? Now, one sort of thinking tool I gave you is this question about multiplication tables. Does multiplication actually exist independent of human minds multiplying? Okay, so does the principle of multiplication exist only when there's somebody or something around to multiply things? Or does this exist, the multiplication tables and the principle of multiplication, does it exist as some fundamental feature of reality? Okay, so I gave you the scenario. Imagine that no thinking things existed in our universe. And then after some period of time, some creature from another universe or another world came into this universe, or life re-evolved in this universe. Would the principles of multiplication apply to those creatures, even if they weren't aware of it? So think about like cell division and so forth. Do multiplication tables exist some way in reality? And if your answer is, yeah, I think they do. I think that multiplication and all of these other mathematical concepts, these aren't things that we've created. These are things that represent features of the reality of our world, of our universe. These are ideas that get represented by things like this multiplication table in front of you. But these ideas, just like triangles, they exist even if they're not being represented, even if they're not being thought about. Okay? If you answered the question that way, then you may be a rationalist. Okay? Another thing to think about is, do all ideas come from experience, or are there some ideas that seem to come from somewhere else? So I would suggest to you that ideas like truth and beauty and justice, morality, these are ideas that have existed for every human civilization that has ever existed. Okay? And of course, each society has its own definitions of these things. How one society defines beauty is probably different from another, and so far with justice and morality. But it's kind of odd that groups of people that didn't know anybody but themselves even existed, had ever existed, they come up with the same ideas. Like they have a concept of justice. Now, a rationalist might point to that and say, well, that couldn't have come from experience, because if you had groups of people that had such limited interaction or such limited movement that they didn't even know other groups of people existed, they couldn't have experienced this concept of justice from another community because they never had any encounters with another community. So it's either coincidence that all of them come up with this concept of justice and maybe define it differently, but they have this notion of justice or beauty or morality, or maybe the rationalist is right. These concepts kind of exist as a feature of reality, and different groups of people at different times have discovered these concepts to more or less accurate degrees. And that's why they have different definitions of what beauty is or what justice is or what morality is. But that nonetheless, these concepts are actually existing things, not just human creations and not just something that we learn about from having experiences of things. All right, so think about that. Are you a rationalist? And we'll have a discussion thread on the discussion board where we can kind of toss around some ideas to see if we can come up with something.